The wind howled through the tall pine trees as the sun dipped behind the Montana mountains. The land was quiet, but the air was thick with danger. Beth stood alone on the ridge, her eyes sharp and fierce. This was not the place she had left behind. It was colder, harder, and darker. But she was ready. Ready to fight for what mattered most. Ready to protect her family and her home. Rip's voice came behind her, steady and calm but full of warning. This isn't Yellowstone anymore, the rules have changed. Together they faced the unknown, two warriors bound by love, blood, and a promise to never back down. You. And Rip had left the Yellowstone ranch, but the past they tried to escape was following them. New enemies lurked in the shadows, eager to claim the land and power for themselves. The quiet life they dreamed of was slipping away. Every step forward brought fresh threats. Beth's hands clenched the reins of her horse as she scanned the valley below. This land was rich with history but also with secrets, secrets that could destroy everything they had built. Rip approached, his boots heavy on the earth. He had always been the strong, silent protector, but now even he felt the weight of what was coming. They want to break us, he said quietly, but they don't know who they're dealing with. His eyes met Beth's with a fire that matched her own. This was their fight. Their story was far from over. The days grew colder, and so did the hearts of those who stood against them. An old rival, thought dead or gone, had returned with a vengeance. This enemy was smarter, more ruthless, and willing to destroy everything in their path. The land was no longer safe for Beth and Rip's kind, but giving up was never an option. Their family depended on them. Their future depended on them. At night, around a small campfire, Beth and Rip planned their next move. The stars above seemed distant, but their resolve was close and burning bright. We'll need more than guns, this time, Beth said. We'll need every ally we can find. Rip nodded, knowing the fight ahead would test everything they had. Trust would be fragile, and betrayal could come from the closest friend. As dawn broke, the cold morning light revealed tracks on the frozen ground, signs that their enemy was closer than ever. Beth's heart raced, but her face stayed steady. She had survived worse storms. She had fought through more pain. And now, with Rip by her side, she was ready to face the storm that was coming. The land they loved was changing, but so were they. Together, Beth and Rip would carve a new path through the wilderness, a path built on strength, courage, and unbreakable bonds. The next chapter in their story was beginning, and it was one that would shake the foundations of everything they knew. No more running, no more hiding. This was their fight, and they would win it no matter the cost. Beneath the wide Montana sky, the world they once knew was slipping away. Beth and Rip had left Yellowstone's familiar grounds, but the fight had only moved to new places. Places darker, rougher, and full of unknown dangers. The land stretched before them, wild and untamed, hiding enemies who didn't just want the land but wanted to destroy everything Beth and Rip stood for. These foes weren't like the ones they faced before. They were cunning, patient, and relentless. Every move Beth made was watched. Every word Rip spoke could be a trap. The peaceful life they dreamed of was fading fast, replaced by a growing storm of threats that reached deep into their past. The small town near the border of the ranch had changed too. Once a quiet place, it now buzzed with tension. New faces appeared, strangers with cold eyes and hidden weapons. Rumors spread like wildfire about land grabs, debts, and old grudges reigniting. Beth felt the weight of every decision she had to make, knowing that a single mistake could cost lives. Rip worked silently in the background, always watching, always ready to step in. Together they prepared for a battle not just of guns and fists, but of wits and wills. Beth's sharp mind was her greatest weapon. She knew that brute strength wouldn't win this fight. It was a game of strategy, trust, and timing. She met with allies old and new, trying to build a network strong enough to face the threat ahead. But trust was fragile. Everyone had secrets, and betrayal was a shadow lurking nearby. Rip's steady hand and calm presence gave Beth the strength she needed. but even he couldn't stop the tension from building like a powder keg ready to explode. The enemy wasn't just external. The fight tore at Beth and Rip's own circle. Old wounds reopened and alliances were tested. Friends became foes and enemies showed unexpected faces. The line between right and wrong blurred as survival took priority over everything else. Beth felt the weight of leadership heavy on her shoulders. Every choice could save lives or lead to ruin. Rip's quiet strength was her anchor in these stormy times, but even his confidence was shaken by the growing darkness. Amid the chaos, family remained their guiding light. Beth's fierce love for her kin drove her forward, refusing to let fear rule their lives. Rip's loyalty was unwavering, his dedication to protect absolute. Together they stood as the last shield between their family and the chaos creeping closer. The land they fought for wasn't just soil and trees. It was a legacy, a promise, to those who came before and those who would come after. As night fell over the rugged landscape, a sense of urgency gripped them both. The enemy was no longer just a distant threat. It was at their doorstep, ready to ignite a war that could consume everything. Beth and Rip readied themselves, knowing that the coming days would test their strength, their resolve, and the very heart of who they were. The new chapter of their lives was no longer about survival. It was about reclaiming what was theirs and forging a future on their own terms. The land demanded it. Their family demanded it, and Beth and Rip would answer the call no matter the cost. The fierce wind cut through the valley, carrying whispers of battles fought and promises broken. Beth and Rip stood side by side, not just as partners in war, but as two souls bound by a shared pain and unspoken understanding. Their connection ran deeper than words, a dance of strength and vulnerability in a world that demanded both. But beneath their tough exteriors lay fears they dared not voice. Beth wrestled with the scars of a past that haunted her every move, while Rip carried burdens of loyalty that weighed heavy on his heart. Their love was a fragile flame flickering against a rising storm, tested by the demands of family, duty, and the ghosts they could not escape. Around them, the people they trusted seemed to change with the shifting winds. Friends who once stood firm now wavered, their true intentions cloaked in shadows. Beth's sharp gaze caught the subtle glances, the whispered conversations. Trust was no longer a given. It was a currency, expensive and rare. Rip, ever vigilant, noticed the cracks forming in their alliances. His silence spoke volumes, warning that betrayal could come from the closest of all. Yet, despite the doubt, both knew that unity was their only hope against the forces closing in. Their shared moments were brief but powerful. Glances exchanged, across crowded rooms, hands brushing in quiet reassurance. Words said in whispers when the world was too loud. These moments held the weight of unspoken promises, to protect, to fight, to never let go. But the pain of their separate pasts threatened to pull them apart, even as the danger drew them closer. Beth's fierce independence clashed with Rip's protective nature, each struggling to balance love with survival in a world that offered little mercy. Secondary figures emerged from the shadows, old allies returning with scars of their own. Strangers whose loyalties were unclear, and family, members caught in the crossfire of a war not of their making. Each brought new challenges and unexpected support, complicating the tangled web around Beth and Rip. Every relationship tested their resolve and forced them to question what they were willing to sacrifice. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the rugged land, Beth and Rip found themselves standing at a crossroads, between hope and despair, trust and suspicion, love and loss. The battle they faced was not just against enemies outside, but against the doubts and fears within. Their story was no longer just about survival. It was about holding on to humanity when everything threatened to take it away. In that fragile balance lay the true strength of Beth and Rip, two warriors bound by more than blood, ready to face whatever darkness came next, together. The night air crackled with tension, every sound sharp and alive. Suddenly the silence shattered. A distant gunshot, the thunder of hooves pounding the earth, a flash of fire lighting the dark. Beth and Rip were in the heart of the storm now. Their world, once filled with quiet moments and hard-won peace, exploded into chaos. The enemy moved fast, ruthless, and relentless, cutting through the shadows like a wildfire. There was no time to hesitate. Every second counted. Beth's eyes burned with fierce determination as she led the charge, her voice a steady command amid the chaos. Rip was right beside her, calm and calculating, reading the battlefield with the experience of a man who had faced death more times than he could count. Their movements were fluid, a deadly dance of strength and skill. Gunfire echoed off the canyon walls and horses reared in panic, but neither Beth nor Rip faltered. They fought not just to survive, but to protect everything they held dear. The battle was brutal, each clash revealing the depth of the enemy's cunning and cruelty. But Beth and Rip had something their foes did not, a bond forged in fire, a resolve that refused to break. They pushed forward, cutting through lies and betrayal, standing tall even as the odds stacked against them. The land itself seemed to respond, the wind carrying their war cries and the promise that they would never back down. Amid the fury, a chilling voice cut through the noise, a warning, a threat. The enemy was no longer hidden in the shadows. They were bold, dangerous, and closer than ever. Beth's heart hammered, but her face showed only steel. Rip's grip tightened on his weapon, his eyes scanning for the next move. The war had reached a tipping point. The final moments before the dawn were thick with suspense. Every heartbeat echoed loud. Every breath was a promise. The fight was far from over, but Beth and Rip were ready. Ready to face the darkness. Ready to fight for the land, for their family, and for the future they would carve out with their own hands. As the first light of morning broke across the horizon, the battlefield was quiet once more. But the story was just beginning. Beth and Rip stood together, warriors not just of the land, but of hope and unyielding strength. The new Yellowstone was born, not in peace, but in the fire of battle, and in the hearts of those who refused to lose.